We're now in front of Martin's Tavern. This tavern would have been here during the Battle of Brandywine. It was formed in 1764 in this town up the street. It's called Marshallton. It's a small community. It's where shops would be. It's where general stores would have been. This is where the wheat, the grain would have been sold to the local, from the farms to people that needed it. Now Marshallton is a direct route into the Turk's Head. This road in back of me goes directly to the fords on the Brandywine, and off to my west, about a mile away, would have been Howe's flanking maneuver. This tavern played a major role in the Battle of Brandywine. Now Joseph Galloway was part of the militia of this area. He rode to John Sullivan. He rode his horse early in the morning from this tavern with reports of the area stating that British were not in the area. There was no one here. He stayed here the night before the Battle of Brandywine. He's left early in the morning to join Armstrong's division that was stationed at Piles Ford. He was a militiaman. He would have been just dressed in his regular clothing. He was a local man. He knew the area. He had friends in the area that knew the area. Now Cheney Squire was in here also. He was a very prominent local man in the area. He was assembled in here in the morning. Now, accounts with Washington came from here. Washington got a report from John Sullivan, from this gentleman that rode down, stating that the British were not moving. He didn't see any movements. The reason why the movements weren't spotted in the distance is that he was too early. He left before Howe was in this area, so he couldn't have seen them when he arrived at Longwood Gardens. And then he went to Welsh's Tavern, and then from there he went to Chad's Ford. This was early in the morning. He could not see the movements that were there during that time. Now another part of this tavern was that a British spy in the area, he was a loyalist to the crown, gave Howe information about this area, about the fords that crossed the Brandywine that weren't protected, because our flanking maneuver, or our line at Brandywine, extended only up to probably, most likely, Britain's Ford. There was no men stationed further down on the Brandywine. Now Howe knew this. He had this spy with him that was from this area. Now the spy generally was with Howe. He gave him a map. The map survives today. It shows the roads in this area. It shows the fords. It shows the fords in this area where Howe could outflank the Americans and head to Birmingham Road up to Street Road, which he did successfully, without contestation. Now during the morning of September 11th, 1777, it was foggy. It was extremely foggy. If you ever wake up and the ground is wet and you can't see in the morning, there's a fog. That's how it would have looked like during the morning. And Howe knew this. He left Kennett Square at 5 o'clock. The fog was in the area. He traversed the area in a flanking maneuver. He crossed the west branch, and then he crossed the eastern branch. Because of the fog, nobody saw the army moving. Now, if this was during the summertime, you could spot his army from a distance because of his wagons. This was dirt. The dust that the army would have kicked up could have been seen for miles. But the flanking maneuver was covered by the British spy map. He was able to traverse this area like he knew it. And also because of the fog in the area, it covered the movements that Washington did not know that Howe was outflanking the army. That came from this tavern right here. Now militia in the area would have been notified that the British were in the area. They would have been sent down with Armstrong's division. Armstrong was a militiaman. He was stationed at Piles Ford, which was a little bit west. They weren't involved in the conflict. The British didn't go down that far. That ford was not contested. They didn't cross there. There was no battle at Piles Ford. When the Brandywine was taken, when they came across the Brandywine, Armstrong's division just went up Brandywine and went to the army to Chester. The building here behind me, as you can see, has been beautifully preserved by the local inhabitants. This is a part of their landscape. It's a part of history. There's no other structure like this. It used to be 3 stories high. It used to be a building, most likely somebody's residence. They took it, they brought it down to what it would exactly look like. They restored it. They did a beautiful job. Now, during this time, there would be loyalists in the area to the crown. A lot of the American loyalists knew who they were. They knew who these people were, and they didn't like them because they were telling British what was going on here. But the Quakers didn't. They weren't on anybody's side. And the majority of people in this area were Pennsylvania Quakers. They didn't care who was on side. But there were people in this area that were loyal to the crown, and we see this with the British flanking maneuver that Howe and Cornwallis did in the early morning of September 11th, 1777.